This video was brought to you by Brilliant. Relations between Germany and the United States, the two economic powerhouses on either side of the Atlantic, have been relatively strained for the last few years. Germany has faced criticism from Washington for not pulling its weight in NATO and skimping out on defense spending, while Berlin has been conspicuously wary of America's newfound penchant for protectionism, especially when it comes to trade with China. However, in the past few months or so, Germany has quietly taken steps to mend this relationship. So in this video, we thought we'd take a look at how the American-German relationship became strained in the first place, where Germany has tried to fix things, and whether Berlin will succeed. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. So, let's start with a bit of context. Despite the occasional hiccup during the Bush era, such as Germany's refusal to join in with the US's invasion of Iraq, Germany's relationship with the US strengthened under former Chancellor Angela Merkel and former President Barack Obama. Together, they addressed critical issues like the economic recovery post-2008, combating ISIS in the early 2010s, and securing a nuclear deal with Iran in 2015. In fact, in his final visit to Germany, Obama hailed Merkel as his closest international partner. Merkel's close partnership with the US cemented Germany's leading role in European foreign policy. However, during the Donald Trump presidency, this dynamic was turned on its head. Trump became obsessed with the idea that Germany was taking advantage of American generosity on defense and trade, and Berlin soon became Trump's favorite punching bag. A major point of contention was Germany's significant trade surplus with the US. Between 2008 and 2018, Germany averaged an annual surplus of around $57 billion. In other words, Germany exported a lot more stuff to the US than the US exported to Germany. In 2018, for instance, Germany exported goods worth $125 billion to the US, while importing just $57 billion. Now, most mainstream economists don't think that bilateral trade deficits are really a problem, and those who do care about deficits usually focus more on overall trade deficits rather than bilateral ones. Nonetheless, Trump disagreed and saw bilateral trade deficits as somehow unfair on America, because Germany was selling lots of stuff to America without buying back an equivalent amount of American stuff. When Merkel visited Trump in Washington shortly after he took office, he famously told her, "Angela, you're terrific, but you owe me $1 trillion. And in his first term, Trump also imposed punitive tariffs on imports of European steel and aluminium, and threatened a 35% tariff on German vehicle imports. Trump also routinely criticized Germany for freeloading Washington's defense piggy bank, while consistently falling short of NATO's defense spending target of 2% of a country's GDP. And in 2020, Trump announced that he would withdraw 12,000 American troops from Germany. Trump also criticized Germany for its relations with China and Russia. Before Russia's war in Ukraine, over half of Germany's gas came from Russia, and in 2018, after Berlin supported the development of the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline, Trump claimed that Germany was, quote, totally controlled by Russia. Germany also got tangled up in the middle of Trump's trade war with China, which surpassed the US as Germany's largest trade partner in 2016. Trump wasn't happy with what he saw as Germany cozying up to China on trade, arguing that both countries were sidelining the US while enjoying trade surpluses at Washington's expense. Now, there was hope in 2021 that a change of administration in both countries would allow for somewhat of a fresh start. And originally, Scholz and Biden did seem to get on a lot better than Merkel and Trump. Scholz appreciated Biden's instinctive Atlanticism, evidenced by his response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and his generally pro-NATO vibes, and Biden was less fussed about the two countries' trade deficit, which actually fell slightly after Germany replaced Russian gas with vast quantities of liquefied natural gas from the US. The war in Ukraine also gave Berlin a chance to counter the accusation that it was freeloading on American security guarantees, and this February, Berlin managed to hit NATO's 2% spending target for the first time since the end of the Cold War. However, some tensions did remain. Germany and the US originally disagreed over Nord Stream, with Scholz resisting Biden's calls to cut off all Russian gas in the immediate aftermath of Putin's invasion. But perhaps more substantively, Scholz has pushed back against Biden's turn towards protectionism and his effective continuation of Trump's China policy. Scholz was particularly irritated by the Inflation Reduction Act, which provides generous subsidies to firms that move their manufacturing to the US, and may have contributed to or accelerated Germany's ongoing deindustrialization. However, in the past few weeks, it looks like Germany has taken steps to improve its relationship with Washington. That's because Germany has quietly taken a stronger stance against China. In July, the German government announced that it would mostly exclude Huawei from its 5G network, and this month will likely send 2 warships through the Taiwan Strait for the first time in 2 decades. Germany has also followed the US in deepening its military relationship with Japan, and recently agreed to a new economic partnership with Taiwan, which mostly involves subsidizing a massive new Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing company plant in Dresden. Scholz has also stopped complaining about American protectionism, and the German state itself is more actively supporting domestic industry. So, what explains this shift towards the US? Well, some of this is more of a shift away from China rather than towards the US, motivated by domestic concerns about stuff like Chinese espionage. But there are also 2 reasons that Germany might be incentivized to buddy up to the US. Firstly, the US has reclaimed its position as Germany's most important trading partner in the first quarter of this year, with combined exports and imports totaling around 63 billion euros. The figure for China was just under 60 billion euros, and the US now also accounts for around 10% of German goods exports, while China's share has fallen to less than 6%. German companies also announced a record $15.7 billion of foreign investment last year, up from $8.2 billion a year earlier, dwarfing the $5.9 billion pledged in China. This is in part because the Chinese economy is in a bit of a state at the moment, and a surge in economic nationalism has made it harder for foreign companies to compete. But the second reason is that Germany's own economic woes means that it does need the American security guarantee. While Germany did meet their 2% NATO defense target last year, a stagnant economy and debt limit-induced austerity mean that military spending is likely to fall in the coming years. It's at least possible that the German government has decided that they don't have the economic strength to fund a wholesale renovation of Germany's subpar military without a significant increase in borrowing, and that it's easier to just cozy up with the Americans again instead. Ultimately, the future trajectory of the US-German relationship depends largely on what happens in November. Most commentators expect Harris to broadly continue Biden's relatively Atlanticist foreign policy, but if Trump returns to the White House, it'll be an open question as to whether Germany's recent moves will be enough to save the US-German relationship. With issues like these, it's often hard to come to the right conclusions. So if you want to improve your decision making, you'll want to check out Brilliant. Brilliant is where you learn by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. For instance, there's the Scientific Thinking course, which takes you on an interactive tour of our physical world. You'll engage with key scientific principles and theories, from simple machines like gears and pulleys to Einstein's special theory of relativity. It's not just a bunch of lectures either. You'll learn by doing, with hands-on lessons that will have you comparing circuits to understand voltage and current, playing snooker to learn the rules of collision, planning your itinerary for an intergalactic music festival on a space-time diagram, and more. That way, you'll build your natural intuition while gaining deep knowledge of scientific principles. Find out more and try everything Brilliant has to offer for a full 30 days by visiting brilliant.org/TLDR or by clicking the link in the description. That way, you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription. Thanks for your support, and thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video.